it's possible for you to wake up every day and feel happy and loved and fulfilled and abundant. I believe that. I think we get to work in co-creation with the larger cosmic divine God, whatever you believe in, to create that, but that it is possible for every woman. And I think that was my biggest wish at one point in my life.
The world has taught us some of the most fundamentally useless ways of thinking about success that actually go against our biology when it comes to achievement and happiness, success and peace. We are taught to push through pain at any cost, to use pressure to persist, focus on the goal, and do whatever it takes to get there. This is useful if the goal is to not starve to death. But success by any means necessary comes at a remarkable cost to our future self. Our mantra around here is not a penny from pressure, only pleasure. The More Alive podcast exists to lead us into a new way of achieving and replace outdated advice that threaten the dream life that actually makes us feel more alive. I'm your host, Andrea Crowder, mom, truth teller, and lover of daydreaming, here to help create a world where we all feel more alive. Welcome to the show. Samantha Daly, thank you so much for coming on the More Alive podcast. Number one, whenever I go to your Instagram, I literally feel this life force, this intoxication, your energy, your words, your wisdom, just pull me in. I know before we got started recording, we were talking a lot about integration. And I know that this hasn't been a quick and easy journey for you to represent this very, very integrated woman who's in the season of kind of having it all with business love. You just got engaged. And I know that that's not where your story started. let's back up a little bit to Madrid and introduce the humans to, tell us a little bit about yourself and your business, and then we'll get into the delicious stuff.
Yeah. Okay. Yay. Well, thanks for having me on. I'm so excited to be here. This is so fun. Backing up to Madrid. Well, I guess we'll rewind a little bit to just who I am and what my business is. So I'm a business mentor. I do business consulting primarily for female entrepreneurs that are building personal brands and using social media to market their products, programs, and services. And my specialty really lies in messaging, conviction, the way that you present yourself, the way that you hold yourself, and the way that the right words don't just sound good or stop a scroll on Instagram, but they actually make sales. And that is something that's really, really important for us to master in the way that we show up. So I'm kind of like the marketing and messaging brain for my clients who are wildly passionate about what they do. And they work in all kinds of different sectors within, coaching and holistic remedies and women's health and all of these things. But sometimes when we're so good at the delivery of what we do, it's a burden to be but how do I market this thing? I'm just so good at providing the service and giving the product. And so that's what people hire me for, is to kind of be that marketing and strategic brain when it comes to that. So I obviously didn't always do this. I didn't even know that this was a career path or an option. When I was really young, I wanted to work in marketing still, which lines up, but more so PR. So I studied strategic communication, and I really thought that I was going to be a corporate girl boss. That was in fact the dream. So I pictured myself in a designer pantsuit with a briefcase and climbing the corporate ladder and just being really important, making my own money, kind of I don't need no man situation. Even though I always wanted and needed a man, but the vibe. So that was my vision of who I thought I was going to be and where I was going in the world, until I was 21 years old and I studied abroad in Madrid, Spain. And it changed everything. When I say everything, I literally mean everything. And I know that sounds kind of dramatic because it's oh, you traveled to it's when people are oh, I traveled to Italy, and nothing's ever the same. I get how cliche it sounds, but truly living there, falling in love there, and just really immersing myself. I lived with a host family. I was really in it. I really wanted to become immersed in the culture, and I was learning the language, and I was dating a guy who was Spanish from Madrid. And so I was really just fully in this experience, and it changed my perception of the world. I know everyone talks about this with Europe, but it's true that work-life balance looks different over there. Their pace is a lot different. Their priorities are a lot different. They really value feeling alive. You can see that in the ways that they choose to spend their time and just how their lives are structured and set up, whether it's like family life, careers, like all of that. And it made me question a lot when I came back and I was sitting at my cubicle at my first, corporate job internship. And I had just left the guy that I accidentally fell in love with while I was studying abroad. And I was just messaging him all day in my cubicle and thinking like, this can't be my future. Across from me is my boss who's in his 50s and he's an alcoholic and he hates his life. And, he's kind of like showing up to work every day like a bit of a slob. And people are always just talking about, what are you doing this weekend? Oh, you should go drink at this place. And it's like, that's really the relief. That's really the excitement. That's really the joy. Like that's the fulfillment that we have to look forward to. Like if I go down this career path, my future is what my bosses are doing. Right. And I don't want to be doing what my bosses are doing. And so everything just exploded in my brain of like immediate confusion. I had 1 year left of university and I was like, what am I going to do? I have to start applying for jobs, figuring this out. Like I'm supposed to be falling in love with this career path that I've chosen. And I'm like completely getting turned off by it. And so that opened a whole can of worms for me to really discover who I wanted to be and where my life was going to go. And it took me a while to get there. At first, I had no idea, but I just ultimately decided I'm going to follow my heart on this one. I have no idea what I'm doing, if it's the stupidest thing I've ever done or if it's the smartest thing I've ever done, but I'm going to not accept these job offers in Chicago. And I'm going to tell my parents reluctantly, after months of already knowing inside myself, excuse me, I just have to let you know that I'm not going to be getting a job out of college. I will be moving to Spain for a guy that I met on Tinder. So you can imagine how those conversations went. But there was like a knowing, like there was just like a sacral authority moment that was like, you will regret more not doing this than doing it and just seeing what it has in store for you. And the feeling that I had was this sense of, even if it doesn't work out, I know that I'm smart enough, resilient enough, skilled enough. Like I can get another job. I can come back to the US. Like I will be able to make this work. And that's why self-trust is such a foundation in how I teach business, because I think you have to be willing to go out on those limbs and take those risks, regardless of whether you think it's the smartest choice or the dumbest choice. Sometimes we're experimenting. Sometimes we don't fucking know. But you have to say, even if it flops or it fails or it doesn't work out, like I'll be okay. Like I'll figure out the next right step and I'll make something of it, And so that's kind of how I ended up living in Spain for 6 years and nurturing that relationship and figuring out that it was actually the man who I loved and would spend the rest of my life with and who I'm now engaged to. So it turns out it was the smartest thing I ever did.
Okay, great. I have questions because I'm like, wait, was that the guy you're engaged to now or was that a different one? Because I thought that I had remembered when we met for lunch that you guys met there, but maybe that was just you meeting in person. Wasn't there a story about like something happening at a bar? There was like, you didn't fully speak. He didn't. Yeah. Okay. Tell the story.
So I studied abroad there and that's when I met him and kind of like started to fall for him. But then I had to leave when that semester was done. So that's when I went back home and I was working in that internship for the summer. And then I had a year left of school. And in that time we were kind of long distance and we were like, oh my God, this is actually like a relationship. Like, are we doing this? Like, are we trying to make this work? And then we decided yes. And so once I graduated school after that year, I moved back to Spain and then I lived there for 6 years. So that's kind of the timeline. But when we initially met, when I was studying abroad there, I was 21. I was trying to have a good time. Like I said, I wanted to do an experience as much as I could. I'm a Sagittarius and my family like did not travel growing up. So I was like,
oh my God.
Like that is
we'll
jail
RRT
time.
That later.
Jail time for my parents. Like what?
Yeah.
So I was chomping at the bit to like get out into the world and like break out of this small town that I grew up in. And I just wanted to do and see and experience everything. So of course, while I was there, people were like, oh, Tinder is like this. This is 2015. So it was very new. It was the only dating app.
Yeah.
No one was really using it that seriously yet. It wasn't like the world we live in today quite yet, but we had heard that people in Europe like used it a little bit more seriously than what we'd heard about it back home, which was mostly just for hookups. But at the time I was on a college campus. I was in a sorority. We didn't need dating apps. So I was like, okay, like let's get it. So me and a bunch of the other single girls on this trip were like, should we get Tinder and just like fuck around and find out and like meet guys. What any other 21-year-old would be doing. So that's how I found him. But the first time that we met in person, it was St. Patrick's Day. And I love that too, because it's like such a lucky day, which makes me smile every time I think about that now. And I was like, okay, I want to meet him in person, but I want to be smart. It has to be a public place. And I want it to be somewhere where my friends are in case he's creepy or weird or I hate it. So I'm like, okay, we're going to this Irish pub for St. Patrick's Day. I'll invite him to like meet us there. Now, something you have to understand about Spanish people is that when they go out really late. So they don't go to a bar until midnight and they will not step foot in a club until 3 a.m. And then they stay until 7 a.m. So, but Americans and British people, like we function differently. We go out to a bar at happy hour. It's like 5 p.m. So especially for St. Patrick's Day, since we were going to this like Irish pub, it was going to be a bit of like an earlier scene. So we get there around like 7 or 8 p.m. normal time kind of to be at a bar, but he doesn't show up until probably after 1 a.m., maybe 2 a.m. And at this point I'm trashed. Like, see you later. I've been drinking for hours. Like all of my friends are basically gone. I think there's like 1 or 2 people left that I know because everyone's been like, I gotta go. Like they're leaving. So I'm walking out of the pub and I hear someone say my name. And I look up and it's him and he's asking me questions. I have no recollection of what the questions are. And I'm just saying, see. No. See. No. I'm just saying, yes. No, to everything that he asks me. And then I say, okay, ciao, see you later. And I get in my taxi and I just leave. And that was our first encounter. And when I reflect back on that day, I'm like, I think God was with me in that moment because it created a lot of mystery. And I think he liked me more. I think he liked me more than he ever would have if I was just my, natural, like loving self.
Oh my God. Yeah, of course. You walked away, you made him hungry.
That's right.
I still do that to my man. Why'd you do that? And I'm like, I got to keep you hungry.
Keep you on the line.
Yes. Okay. So you guys have been together for almost 10 years and you guys just got engaged. And that's quite a story in itself that I kind of like want to pin and like come back to the engagement story. Can't not hear because I actually haven't heard the full details. Do you want to give people like a little teaser to make them hungry?
Yeah, this is the teaser. I got robbed and engaged on the same day.
Yeah.
That's the teaser.
In Mexico, right?
Costa Rica,
right. Okay. So we'll come back to that. Okay. So you've completely decided that you're going to have this magical European experience. Your parents are like, holy shit, your Sag heart is alive and well. Yeah. You're in adventure. Like Keith is a Sag too. So I'm like, there's no way I could ever, like, he can't even stay in the house for 2 days in a row without going. He's like, we have to go out. I have to go somewhere. I need adventure. Like, I can't imagine your sweet childhood. So now you've created this kind of, you drew a line in the sand moment and you're like, I'm going to choose this experience. When did you decide that you were going to start a coaching business and all of this that made sense for you?
Yeah. So when I made the decision, I was like, I'm moving back to Spain. I'm going to see where this relationship goes. Kind of made that definitive decision. When I got to Spain, I was working as an English teaching assistant in the schools there. I was making like $1,000 a month and more than half of it was going to rent and expenses. So I wasn't really doing well financially. Didn't have any savings because I spent it all on my visas and, first month's rent, deposit, whatever. Like it was just basically all gone. Everything that I'd saved up nannying while I was in college, I just spent it all on getting there. And I was like, I'll figure out the rest once I'm there. And so that's kind of the situation that I found myself in. And I was also quite disconnected from like my sense of self-love because after studying abroad and, being in college for 4 years where we were binge drinking and partying and eating whatever we were eating, God knows what. I felt like I didn't recognize myself. And I was really in probably the worst spot that I had ever been in with my body image of just really feeling like I don't know who this version of me is and having more negative thoughts about my image and trying to force myself into really intense workouts and starting to have, some kind of disordered thoughts around food. I never had an eating disorder, but I definitely was just not flowing and natural with food, I would always eat whatever I wanted, but then I would like have thoughts about like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Or like, now I have to work out harder or that kind of thing. And so that first year in Spain, I was really focused on like, okay, I need to come back to myself. I need to come back home to like who I am. I want to feel confident again. I want to love myself again. And so I went back to my practice of yoga that I had practiced yoga since I was a kid. And I was like, I think this will just help me. So I canceled my gym memberships. I was like, I'm just going to do yoga. And I found this woman on Facebook, Danette May. You might know her because she's also kind of like in the coaching space. But at the time, I didn't know what a coach was. So I bought like one of her 30-day challenges, had no idea what. It's so funny looking back at it now. I'm like, oh, I know exactly what I was doing and what kind of offer I was buying. But at the time, it was just like, it's $55. I thought about it for 3 full days. Growth. We've grown. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And I did that. And I just started to learn so much about like my inner world and my inner voice and self-love. And I started using affirmations and meditating. And then I got deeper into my yoga practice and I was listening to podcasts. I started reading all these books and I really started to deeply like transform my life and my perspective of the world. And I started getting new opportunities. I got into network marketing. I got an internship with an influencer who was running retreats globally, and I got to help her run retreats in Greece and Bali, and things were just working for me. And like I felt this momentum and like everything was working out for me. I was actually believing that. And I loved myself. I dropped like all the extra weight that I was carrying because I really soothed the fight or flight kind of stress response that I was in for such a long time. And so that was like, I just wanted to share that. And I'm a natural kind of writer and communicator. I have like a stellium in the house of communication and my degree is in communication. So naturally I was like, I'm just going to blog about this and I'm going to write like on my Instagram and share about this. And so that's kind of the beginnings, like the early beginnings of my coaching business was just being born from wanting to share the mindset stuff and the subconscious reprogramming that I was doing and the self-love and just all the different things that were really changing my outcomes in my life. And then eventually I learned that it was like a job that I was like, oh my God, this is like a thing. Like I didn't know what a coach was, but then I found that out and I was like, okay, let me like take the certification. And I did my yoga teaching certification and I just kept going deeper and deeper. And then I realized that I could monetize it and I could help other people. I started serving clients like really small and it grew from there. And so it didn't start, with teaching people how to grow their businesses. But once I had, built something that was like at the multi-6-figure level, I had a lot of my clients saying, you've changed my life on like a mindset and career perspective. And I have this thing that I'm passionate about and I really want to monetize it. Can you tell me how you did this? And so just kind of naturally took that turn. And that's what I've been doing now for the last couple of years.
So like most of us, we come into this world and we are just like half glass full. We're so excited. All of a sudden, there's this brand new possibility that we didn't even know existed. Because I kind of came in around the same time where there wasn't a lot of people making crazy money. Not like now where all of a sudden you see some people who are doing like $1 million months that like had no business doing that before, right? Like it's crazy now seeing what's possible. But before it was just like, oh, I can just do this and I can just make a living doing it. It wasn't about like truly growing wealth. And then somewhere along the journey, the possibility kept growing. And I feel like you and I have had similar stories where we are coming and we're like doe-eyed and like, yes. And I just want people to know what I know. And like, I figured this out and I want you to be able to figure it out too. Like all of the best intentions. And then somehow that like beast can eat you. Like, tell us a little bit about what your journey has been like and how have you, just tell us a little bit about that journey.
Okay.
I don't want to ask you too many questions at once.
I think I had no idea like the possibilities that were available through this chosen career path when I chose it. And I do think that actually worked to my advantage. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think I think it creates a lot of pressure for people nowadays coming into the space and seeing the $1 million months and everything. And then it feels like everything that they're doing is not that good or not enough. Right. Whereas my expectation was like, like I said, I was making $1,000 a month teaching in the school, and I was living in Spain. So my cost of living was much lower, but still I was like, oh my God, if I can make $1,000 a month, like I will quit this teaching job. Like it was, and that was of course quite easy to do. So that helped me because it felt like, oh my gosh, this is so easy. But I still remember the first person that I ever saw making $100,000 a month. And this is a woman now that like I love. She's a friend of mine. I've worked with her for 4 years. She's been a mentor to me for a really long time. But I first saw her making $100,000 a month. She was the first person that I ever saw like posting about that. And this was probably in 2019 or 2020, maybe early 2020. And I was just rocked by that. I was like, you are joking. But no part of me thought that it was a lie. I know some people have that reaction where it's like, oh, it must be fake, it must be a lie. I didn't think it was a lie. I fully was like, that is fucking real. And that's crazy. And she knows something that I don't know. And I think that's always been my perspective towards, you know, mentorship and stuff, is like finding people who you really believe are in integrity and you can feel that from them, and wanting to understand their stories and their truth and their perspective. And so that was the path that I started to take. I was like, I'm going to work with her. Delusionally, I, you know, had made maybe $2,000 in my business. And I was like, hey, so like, what's your one-on-one? She was like, it's $15K for 3 months. And at the time I was like, I couldn't find $15K in this world if I had a gun to my head. Like that was how I felt. But I was like, okay, I am going to figure that out. And in less than a year and a half, I was like, I'm ready, signed up, 15K. Like I created so much in that time that I was just like, I can do this. And so, yeah, I think it's easy to get it. And that just keeps growing, right? Like 100K a month now is like, feels like what used to be the 10K month. It's like, that feels like the baseline of like, if you're not making 100K months, like, what are you doing? Right. And it's just crazy how the limitless potential is so expansive and it's so abundant and it's so exciting. But it also, like you said, can be this machine that almost like eats you alive because there's no end in sight. And I do think that for some people, it hurts them more than it helps them to believe that like there's infinite potential of like what they can make. I love the fact that I had this like ladder situation where I was like, if I could just make $1,000 a month, awesome. Yeah. I didn't start out, you know, hoping for 100K months or $1 million months, but there was a season in my business where, and I think I've always been really good about like truthfully, like staying true to myself. And, if there's people that I see online having great success, but I feel a weird energy about them or around them, then I'm not bought into like, oh, I'm just going to work with them because they're the hottest, biggest thing right now. And I just want to, I think I've always been really, really good around following that intuitive feeling and really, I know a lot of people have had bad experiences. I really honestly haven't had like bad experiences with coaches or mentors because I've always decided to work with people who I could feel their heart and their integrity. And I know sometimes that's hard to like decipher, but yeah, there was a season in my business where I wasn't burned in any way, but I definitely was burning out, not from anyone else or anyone else's fault, but just from wanting to do so much and being good at doing so much. And then also having some personal things that happened at the same time of like going through a psychic attack, which I didn't know was a thing. I was psychically attacked twice on 2 of my retreats. And I was made like really ill. I was like puking like 20 minutes before I had to like get up and like lead like a sacred rage session. Like up all night, like shivering, like on the toilet, like vomiting, like really intense to where then I was like, this is super weird. It was only the second time that it happened where I was like, I feel like this doesn't make any sense because nothing is adding up. And so that kind of shook me a little bit. And then around the same time, my partner and I went through something really difficult, which was we made a really large investment in something that turned out to be a scam. And this person that we thought that we could trust ended up stealing all of our money. And it was not only, you know, around 6 figures in our money, but it was also at this point we had gotten family members to invest that was supposed to, build money for them and be good for them. And that was really, really hard on my partner. And that actually happened while I was away in the Dominican, leading my retreat where I was being psychically attacked and being made ill. And he was at home dealing with the fact that he had just lost my father's money, my brother's money, his cousin's money, our money. And so I came home from that retreat and he was like, I have to tell you something. And that was in December. And so at the end of that year, I was just like, this next year, like going into 2024, I was just like, I need some softness. Like I'm just craving some space. I'm craving levity. And so that was, kind of the shifting from, as we were talking about, that hustle season to more of like I called it my soft CEO era of really just wanting to be in ease. Like I can do hard things, but in the energy of ease.
That we can. And that's like it's not something, it's a standard, right? Like you hit a wall and you're like, I can't operate like that, at least right now. And you probably found out that that's a better way of operating long-term anyway.
100%. Yeah. I learned a lot. And it was like, I feel like I first discovered feminine energy and like ease and letting go of control through the lens of relationships, because I was quite controlling and mothering in relationships. I think that growing up, I was like a fixer in my relationships. Like my high school boyfriend was very traumatized, very troubled individual. And I was like, and I think it's the part of me that always wanted to be a coach. That, how like, it's like you've always had the personality for it. It was like, I saw that he could have potential and like he could have an amazing life and he could overcome this and like he could shift the way that he saw it. And like, if he could just focus and like learn that school was like just a means to an end. And I know that you hate it, but like, if you play the game, you get to win. But if you don't play the game, then you automatically lose. So like, go to your fucking math class, but like, I was naturally that way. I was that way with my friends. Like I was the motivational speaker always and the uplifter and the fixer. So I had to
call it that. I could fix that disease.
Yeah. Oh, you have a problem? I can fix that. And so I had the first place in my life where I really started to unlearn that or learn a different way was through relationships. But then this like soft CEO era in business was almost like applying all of that I had learned and unpacked and worked on in my relationship dynamics and applying it to the business dynamics as well.
If you're a digital course creator, imagine this. Your clients start coming to you and they're like, Andrea, this is the first program that I've ever finished start to finish and then came back to again and again and again. I know one of the things that we really look forward to is the people who are actually transformed by our work. Not only are they transformed, but then they come back and they're asking for more. One of the tools that we have used that has been so profoundly impactful in creating this type of response and experience for our customers is how we produce our programs through digital audio only. Almost every single one of our programs, aside from maybe the occasional masterclass where I might have a few slides, is digital audio only. And then we offer transcripts for people who want to be able to have something visually that they can look at. But the thing that I know about my customer, and tell me if this is the same for you, is that she's on the go. I used to call it, driving to and from work, drive time academy, where I'm on my way to work, 45 minutes there, 45 minutes home. That means 90 minutes a day I'm learning. I'm understanding the thoughts, the identities, the skills, the patterns, the behaviors of the identity of the person who's already achieved what it is that I want to achieve. And that's the beautiful thing about the coaching industry and what we're able to support people through is like, we've already achieved this identity. We're going to give you our steps and how we did that. And I've found the best way in actually executing, delivering that material is through audio only. So we are obsessed with Hello Audio. People message me all the time. They're like, how do you do this? What's the tool? It's Hello Audio. There's nothing else that you need to know. Here's what we have experienced since we switched is not only do people come and they're like, hey, I've completed this program. How many people like buy a program, they go into Kajabi, They never open it. I have so many programs that I've never actually used because there's this almost like a barrier to entry, which tends to be that password. And so for me, I'm constantly in my podcasts. So I'm like, why wouldn't I put my program where my people already are? So when people are screenshotting the podcast that they're listening to, oftentimes their podcast library is filled with my face, which is becoming almost like free advertising to other people. It has been so impactful in marketing and customer experience. And then people come back and they want more and more and more. So that's why people say like the majority of their feed is filled with my face, because it's so easy for them to consume when they're on the go. And aren't we all on the go? So we have been in diehard devotion to our pretty much audio only, to the point where I even have a private podcast feed that is a subscription, a monthly subscription. I nearly replaced the majority of my private client work with me doing my private subscription with my Legends in the Making offer. So people are paying me to be able to access an additional podcast, so to speak, where people are getting my channeled thoughts and like what it is that I'm thinking and how I'm continuing to build and grow my business on the go as I'm doing it. Hello Audio. The way that I've done all of this is Hello Audio. I've been on their podcast multiple times. I can't stop raving about them. Lindsay, who's one of the founders, is just like a fucking brilliant human. And she, like, the creation of this product, the evolution of this product has only gotten better and better and better. We're only more aligned and in more complete devotion to continuing to use this product for our customers. We are so obsessed with the overall experience. Our customers message us all the time because they just really enjoy the experience comparatively. You know, that customer guilt where you're like, oh, another program, I didn't use it, I kind of feel bad about it. We just don't get that. People message us and they're like, I did it, I finished it. Not only did they get what they came for in terms of whatever type of knowledge or identity shift that it is that they're looking to achieve, but also the satisfaction of the thing that I set out to do, the thing that I spent my money on, the thing that I invested in, I actually got my money's worth. And they feel really good about that. So I wanted to share that with you guys. And Hello Audio offered me an amazing 2-month, not 2-day free trial, a 2-month free trial just for my audience. I'm telling you guys, I'm their number one power user. And now I kind of feel competitive about it. So just know that you'll never beat me. Last time I checked, I had the most Hello Audio feeds out of all of their customers because I use it for everything. The way that we can just, I mean, like all of my client work, my clients have their own custom feeds. Of course, like all of my coursework, any of my like free opt-ins, I've used it for list building when I want to give like a free guided visualization or anything else like that. So you guys, Hello Audio, 2 months for free. Give it a try. Swear to God, you will not regret.
So what did that look like? I know you said that you mentioned you had this relationship where it was like, okay, I can fix that, I can fix that, I can fix that, a lot of the mothering. What did that look like coming into this relationship that you found your forever person quite early in your life? You're growing up with him. I know exactly what that's like. You're like similar in nature. You and I have been the person that like all of our friends come to when they need advice or when they need something fixed. And then growing up with that person from such a young age of like not just understanding that like you could apply help, but then learning discernment about when it's the right time and place, and fumbling through that season of figuring out discernment for yourself. And sometimes we hurt people in that process, trying to control things, trying to make them better so we can feel at ease. I don't know if you can relate to that, but I think a lot of my stuff was rooted in I could fix that so that if you can behave differently, then I can feel better and more at ease, knowing that like either knowing that you're okay or knowing that you're operating within a framework that like makes things easier for me. Like what was that experience like? You guys have been together for quite a long time.
Yeah, it's 10 years. So we met when I was 21 and I was studying abroad. We're both now 31. So we have grown up together and like so much has changed. But I think it's one of the things that luckily we grew together and we grew alongside each other. And so I know sometimes when you grow in relationships, you grow in opposite directions, you grow apart from each other when you meet really young. But luckily we grew together and we both became better versions of ourselves and like learned each other's, patterns and processes throughout that. And are a really, I think we're a really great team at this point now. But obviously, when I'm a 21-year-old kid, like I'm just, and I was just, I don't know, maybe 6 months off of that other relationship that I was talking about where I was doing all the mothering. But yeah, I think initially I like my same patterns were at play in that relationship, although he didn't need as much fixing. The base canvas we were starting with was better.
Much better. Got it.
Much better canvas. So that automatically just relaxed me a little bit. But still, I felt like I could do everything better. And so I have to do everything now because the way that I do it is the best. And I really think it wasn't until I started getting into my business where my time capacity was stretched in a new way that I was forced to go, I actually need this person to like help, and we're living together, and I can't do all the things anymore. I can't cook all of the meals, and I can't do all the laundry, and I can't do all the things anymore. So I have to let go because the business was obviously time consuming at the start when you're trying to get something off the ground. And I was working full time as well at the same time. So that was the catalyst for me going, okay, let's do like a little experiment, like what if I let him do the laundry? And I let him do it, and I couldn't tell if he had folded it yet or if it was still just like in a pile, but it was folded, obviously not to my liking. I'm a Virgo rising, so you can understand how challenging this was for me. But I was like, I have to let him help me, because if I don't accept help, then no one wants to help you. And so I just started like learning, or I guess unlearning patterns in that way, because I was forced to with entrepreneurship of like, you can't just put everything on your back and have it all on your own shoulders. It won't work.
What was his experience through that through your lens?
I think because we were so young, like if I asked him about it now, he probably wouldn't really it wouldn't stand out to him. Like, I don't think he would remember it that much, but I think it would definitely be clear to him that I have grown and changed. And he also has grown and changed a lot. It's interesting because I feel like when I was younger, I was much more progressive. And I don't know if this is a common experience for women in the world right now, but I feel like I was much more split everything 50-50 and whatever. And now I'm just I'd rather be more traditional. And maybe it's also because of the experience of being the female breadwinner and having this business where you are kind of pushed into a somewhat masculine role during your work, and you technically are providing financially a lot for the family. And so then you just desire that true feminine ease and relax and letting go and not having to be in charge of something. Oh my God, fucking love that. I think I used to be the friend that would be I'll do the Google map and I'll plan it. And now I'm just literally, I'm not planning anything. If you guys can do it, that's great. It's, it just feels so good. It feels so nourishing when someone else takes charge. So funny because one of my friends and I, we went to a conference last year in Denver, and we're both kind of in that energy. And we're walking through the airport, talking. And then suddenly she goes, "Do you know where we're going?" I'm oh, no. Do you know where we're going? We're just walking aimlessly. We have no no vision for where are the exit signs, because we're just in our, we need that someone to follow. I don't want to leave.
Yes. No, absolutely not. Well, there's a time and a place, right? And it's you kind of know when. For me, I always walk with purpose. So it's very confusing because I do look like I know where I'm going, which is a total mistruth. So please never follow me.
Speed walking to who knows where.
Wherever the wind blows us. Yes. Okay, I have selfish questions. Keith and I have just moved in together, and it's heaven. I love it. It was hard. The integration period was absolutely rocky and more challenging than I expected. And we're on the other side of that, thank God. And he has shown up like an angel.
For you or for everyone else in the family, or both?
For me mostly, because I think coming out of a relationship with someone with severe PTSD, I would look at women's wedding rings, and the first thought that would come to mind was, oh, she must be stuck. And I'm oh, that's my perception of marriage, because I was afraid that if I left him, he would die. But if I didn't, I might, or one of the children might. Like it was not because he would harm us, but because it was such a chaotic, stressful environment that I started getting really ill. And so I like perceived togetherness as stuckness.
Mm,
And I didn't feel it viscerally until I was also moving into his house.
right.
And then I didn't have my work apartment yet. So I was just kind of like giving up my happy house, my like single woman, like fortress. And it was very, very like rocky for my nervous system because I was just like, I'm going to be stuck. I'm not going to be okay. I'm not going to be get out of here. Like he would say one thing like facetiously and laugh, and like my nervous system would just shatter. And I'm like, I have to run. And I'm like, I didn't do it. I didn't run, guys. I did not run, but every
Relax.
ounce in my body, every ounce in my body was like, get the fuck out of here. Run as fast as you can. Like,
Damn.
now we're like integrating like normalness of like sharing finances and like who pays for what. And we very much look at everything through the lens of masculine and feminine polarity. We're very traditional when it comes to like energetics, not
Hmm.
traditional in the way the world interprets men and women, but
Right.
energetics side. So how have you guys like worked through that when it comes to like finances and shared responsibility outside of just like who does laundry?
Hmm.
How do you guys prioritize like your romantic connection through all of that?
Hmm. Yeah, I think that we had to have really specific conversations about this stuff, particularly when we were moving from Spain back to the US because
Mm.
of the fact that Jaime was going to be going through his green card process, which when you're doing that, initially you can't work. So you can't have a job. You can't
Oh,
be employed. And so I just knew going into that, like this is going to bring up some things for him because he
yeah.
does not like the feeling of not providing and not being in that role. And he was just gonna, like, it was something that was like out of our hands. It was a very unique dynamic. And I was like, you're just gonna have to let me. And also, we were moving to my parents' house because we wanted to buy a home here in Fort Lauderdale, but we needed time to visit and to look, and it was a crazy market in 2022. And
Right.
so we're like, okay, we're gonna move in with my parents. They live in North Carolina, and
Wow.
you're not going to be able to have a job. And they live on a farm in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, you're not going to be able to like make money or like really do anything. And I'm just going to have to work. And we're just going to have to make this be okay. And you're also going to be living with under my parents' roof. So a lot of challenges, as you can imagine, when it
Damn.
comes to like navigating the masculine and feminine dynamics that we wanted to hold within our relationship. So we had to talk about that a lot. And it's not that talking about it like made it a non-issue or it was just so seamless and simple and easy, but I think talking about it made us more prepared of like, hey, this is probably going to be really hard for these reasons. And what are our strategies going to be for navigating that? And I think one of the main things was like, he was actually going to have to learn how to receive, which is, you know, just the flip flop of what you're normally used to. I was like, you are going to have to receive my help and support. We're going to share everything. Like all our finances are obviously shared. They already were, but like that's the money that we're going to be spending. But we're just going to have to like, you're going to have to let me help you. And there were so many times when we were living in Spain where I had to receive from him because, like I said, I was working these jobs before my business was really doing well, where I was not making a lot of money. And then in the summer times when there was no school, like we weren't getting paid. So there'd be like 3.5 months out of the year where I had no paycheck. And it wasn't like there was a lot of savings left over throughout the school year for me to even have anything built up for that. So there were a lot of summers where like he had to pay for everything for us. He had to, do the groceries and the rent and like all the things. Cause I was just like, I got fired from jobs. Like I was unemployed multiple times. Like he supported us a lot while we were there. So it was
Got
like
it.
that reciprocation of like, now you're going to have to learn how to receive. But once we got into our home here and things started to kind of like stabilize and normalize, it was just, there are certain things where I know and he knows that that's how I feel his like protector provider energy that have nothing to do with money. So like boy jobs. You know what I mean? Like he's the one that takes out the trash, as silly as it sounds.
Yeah.
And like, he's the one that has to
Yeah.
lock the door every night. Like, I
Mhm.
need you to remember to lock the door. And that is providing for me. That's making me feel so safe. When we go places together, like he drives. When we get groceries, he always carries the heaviest bags. Like it's just like little things like that, that maybe if you don't have the conversation about it with your partner seem like insignificant or like that they don't matter. But to a woman, I think they matter a lot. And so there's so many ways that I feel his like protection and his provider energy, especially when it comes to travel and just like fully trusting him. I never used to be able to do this, but now like he plans our entire trips and I just surrender and I just trust, and he organizes it all and he books it all. The thought of like booking a flight or like having to sit and go through hotels for hours and try to find he knows my vibe. He knows my requirements. He knows the standard, and like he can find it. I'm getting a new car, which is amazing. I'm so excited for it. But like he's sorting out all the insurance. We have bills, and like a lot of what we pay for comes from the money that I make because I make more money, but he sorts everything. Like I'm not managing who's selling our mortgage to who every third month and resetting up the back end, like auto pay, like, ew, no. So I think there's a million ways that we've figured out how to maintain that, as you say, traditionally energetic balance while being in a very like untraditional situation.
Yeah, we were talking about like shared like expenses the other night, and he just casually said, he's like, yeah, the dog food has been auto shipped from my account. And like my brain went to, does he want me to help pay for dog food? And instantly my vagina like seized and I was like, ah. She's like, alert, alert, alert. And I was like,
we're drying up.
I literally went to my AI and I was like, why did my vagina just get dry? I was like, I don't understand why I'm like having such like a surge and like a freak out. I was like, and I can't stop I like could not stop mentally obsessing over it. And she's like, because it felt like roommate energy. And I'm like, of course it did. Of course.
Yeah. And he
right.
doesn't,
So
he doesn't want you to pay for the dog food.
no, he doesn't care. No, he literally does not care. And I
No.
was like, for me, like him paying for dinner is like the biggest turn on in the world. I don't care who pays for the landscaper and who pays for the pesticides. And like, I'll just put that on auto ship and I don't care. Like, I'll pay for all of that. But I feel so provided for, so loved, so protected. When he locks the doors, we had a huge thing about door handles.
Wait, I think I kind of remember it loosely.
No, that was my old house. Like I had the
Oh,
thing with there's a thing with door handles in my life, and I haven't figured out the symbolism of that yet. So if anybody knows, but like the
ask
door handles were
legend.
falling off. Yeah, I know. I haven't I haven't thought about that. But yeah, it was like the front door handle kept like the little hook that keeps it together kept falling out, and so it would get loose. And then he went on a trip, and like even though the door handle didn't keep the door from being able to be open, instantly my mind went from like this is right as we're moving in. Instantly my mind went to like he's not going to protect me, and I was crying over everything during like for like a 2-week period, like a wreck, a total wreck.
Bless this man.
Bless this man. Truly. No, he's an angel and like held me through a lot of like snotty, ugly cries. But yeah, like figuring out it's never about the money, right? It's always about the nuance of the energy of what it means to you. And like learning my interpretations of like what I think his actions mean have been a fascinating personal growth experience.
Something that I think is a like maybe more of a vulnerable share from me, but that is I think a really important thing to speak to in this conversation for anyone that's listening is if you are a woman who makes a lot of money or just good money or you're the breadwinner or whatever, I find that like you're saying, it's not the money that matters. It's the feeling of being like protected, provided for, supported.
Yeah.
When there are moments where I feel out of control or I don't feel supported, my mind immediately wants to go to, this is so unfair because I work so hard to make all the money for everything in our life. And that is so gross and so toxic. But it again reminds me of like, the fact that it's not about the money. It's about the feeling that I am wanting to have. And if I'm not getting it, my ego goes to like that of like, oh, but like I'm doing so much. So like, why aren't you doing so much? And so that's been something that I have had to create a lot of awareness around and like really work on.
Yeah. Yeah. The way that we can sometimes interpret the concept of fairness causes so much stuff between like children. I've noticed a lot between Keith's kids. Like every night predictably when they're here, and by the way, they're angels. I love them to death. Like this is the only time where I'm ever just like, guys, fucking knock this shit off. They're 16 and 18. Every night predictably, guaranteed until very recently, they have argued over whose turn it is to do the dishes. And I'm like, we all know who did it last night. Like, and it's always like, it always becomes a fight. And it's been really interesting as I've witnessed it for a really long time without inserting myself, as like me being like the girlfriend for a while. And now this is also my home. Right. And so now I'm starting to like look for, okay, like what's the root of this? And the root of this is the idea of that things should be fair. And don't we know that when we think things should be fair, we create ultimate suffering for us in this life because the idea of fairness isn't even a true reality that we could ever achieve, right? It's like our mind goes, well, I do this, so where's the equal to? And versus looking at like, is there reciprocity and total energy between two people? That's something I'm very interested in, not being fair, but being balanced. Because as soon as we let there be an imbalance of energy based off of who gives or who receives, it always tips into resentment. The end result, the fracture and the harmony and the thing that poisons it all is resentment. But it started with us allowing there to be an imbalance of how energy is given in totality of the relationship. And so that's why I'm very careful. Like Keith, I talk about this a lot in my Legends community where like Keith is admittedly a people pleaser, or he's been in people pleaser tendencies. I don't want that from him. I know that leads to resentment. And so I'm constantly asking, like, do you really want to do that? Do you really want to go here? Do you really want to say yes to this? And like giving him permission to like really check in with his own desires, because I weigh our energetics almost daily, making sure that there's no imbalances of like someone saying yes out of like obligation or whatnot. So, and I have to check the root of my decisions of like, did I do that because I really wanted to, or because I wanted to be able to like stack the energy in my favor of saying like, look what I did for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God. If more people in the world had this level of like self-awareness and emotional intelligence, I just think so many relationships would be going so much better, because it is like we're all just human and we have these like natural kind of responses, but we have to constantly be looking at ourselves and asking these questions. And it's not fun to be like, oh, how am I the problem in this dynamic, But like in what I just shared, I'm like 100%, that's gross. Like that's a problem. So we have to fix that. Okay. So where does that come from? Like, why did I not feel supported? Like, what can we do better? How can we restore the balance? Like, do I feel that there's reciprocity? Like all of those things. And I love like what you just spoke to there, because it also highlights the difference between, again, instant gratification versus long-term success and happiness of the relationship. It's like, it's very easy if he's just saying, oh yeah, like he's saying yes to you for what you want. It's very easy for you to just accept that because it's convenient for you, because you get what you want. But you have, like you said, you make every decision with your future self in mind. You have that future version of you and the future version of your relationship in mind, which is, I don't even want to get what I want in this moment today if it means that it's going to build resentment for Keith down the line. And I think that's something that a lot of people are not maybe doing as much in life and business and relationships across the board, right? Because we want what we want and we want it now.
Yeah, I call it first bite energy versus last bite energy. Like if you're dairy free, that first bite tastes really good. last bite, not so much. And the next 6 hours in the bathroom, also really not so much. And so I'm always checking to make sure that I am not going to be in the bathroom 6 hours after any decision metaphorically. And yeah, like I just like weighing all of those decisions to check for that energetic reciprocity in relationships and making sure that stays harmonious is so crucial. Because you're right, it can be easy to be like, well, I did this financially. But when in reality, there's an equal measure of somebody bringing something back energetically different, but still feels balanced and equal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying all of this with lots of question marks at the end of my sentences too, because like I understand the energetics of this, but also implementing it in the real world is like it's sometimes tough. Keith and I had a conversation, and I told him I was like, I think I had a poor response from this dog food chat with you. And he's like, tell me more. He's like, he looks at me and he goes, did you get an ick? And I was like, I don't want to call it that.
Did you get an ick? He's funny.
He is funny, thank God. But we talked about it and he's like, so what do you want? What's the answer? And I was like, the reality is I don't know yet. But I just want to keep this conversation open and make sure that it's okay that we keep talking about this, because I kind of haven't figured out exactly what I think is the solution here. Kind of hoping he's going to come back with like, how about you just let me handle this and this? He did come back to me and he's like, if you ever think for 1 second that I'll let our polarity become checked and that there will ever be a moment that I would let something come between your attraction to me, wrong answer. Mm-hmm. He's like, I'm like, oh, my daughter listens to my podcast now. She's on the team, so I can't
cover your ears.
Your situation is mine, basically. Like, and he quickly went into like, I claim you mode, which is exactly what I needed. And like, I just knew whatever it was handled, and like our future self had it handled, because he was like, whatever it is, whatever the solution that we come to, it's already done, because I'll make sure of it. And that's all I needed to hear from him in the moment, was that like he would prioritize that, even if we didn't know the exact answer of how that would play out for us right now.
Right. Like coming back to connection and polarity and love is always more important than like the nuanced bullshit conversation you're having about like who's paying for the dog food, right?
Right. Yeah. It's never about the goddamn dog food, guys.
No. Unfortunately, though, sometimes it's easy for us to get caught in the minutia, in the details, like just being really zoomed in on a particular problem in life, relationships, business, all of it, and be like, and it's like if you zoom out and you can look at that future version of what you're actually trying to get back to or move towards, it kind of helps create more obvious solutions to what you're so fixated on, because it's like, this isn't even really important. It's like a bigger, like you said, asking better questions, like asking a bigger question, like looking at the larger picture.
Yeah. How do you do that? Are you able to do that in the moment, or does it take you a little perspective to be able to get there?
I wouldn't say that it's like immediate, but I think when if I notice myself ruminating on something, or there's like a frustration in my business and I'm like thinking about it over and over again, or maybe I've like messaged one of my coaches about it. And then sometimes that's when it hits me where I'm like, what's actually, sometimes you have to voice something out loud. I think that always helps, like actually saying it to someone, like whether it's a friend or a coach or whoever, or your AI, you say it out loud, and then you look at it literally like written out in front of you, and you're like, oh, see, this is silly, because you can suddenly like see the larger picture. So I wouldn't say that it's like instantaneous, but I think it's much quicker than it used to be when I was like, just living an unconscious life in autopilot mode, assuming all my thoughts were me.
Dear God. Pray for that version of us.
Yeah, right. That's scary to think. I mean, I think we did pretty well. To move through life with no clue that like your thoughts aren't you, and that you can choose your reality. And like, I don't know, I'm just kind of like, wow, that's actually crazy. Like how much I was able to like do and transmute and be and stay true to myself, even having no knowledge of any of this now.
Oh my God. And also in the world of thinking, like when you say my thoughts are not me, the first automatic response that or automatic connection that comes up to me is like a lot of my religious programming about like what it means. Like if I think about a person in this particular way, or if I have a thought in this way, especially when it comes to like our feminine sexuality and like what that means, and if I'm slutty and like this and that, and like all of those thoughts in those early years of like me starting to think that my identity is impure and wrong, and the shame that just like eats at you from that. I don't know if you had any of that experience younger, but like that was quite the unlearning
Mm.
for me.
Luckily, I didn't have like any religious trauma in that sense. My family wasn't really religious. Well, one of my grandmas was super, super Christian. We called her the church lady, but I wasn't like close enough with her to like, and I don't know if, like what her outlook would even be. I'm curious about that too. She's come through for me in a psychic reading before. So I know she's like with me, but yeah, it's interesting looking back on like the perspectives that we had of
Yeah.
religion and right from wrong and morality and like all those things when you're older. I Yeah, like I went to church sometimes growing up. I got confirmed in the Christian church because my mom was kind of like, maybe like just in case, sort of thing. And I was like, felt. Sure. We'll do it. We'll do it just in case. But it's been really interesting, going into this is a whole other conversation. This is another podcast. We don't need to get so deep in this, but like the, new age spirituality sort of lifestyle that I think a lot of us like adopted in the coaching space, but then now obviously seeing a lot of people return to Christianity. And again, I think it comes with that wave of really, really like progressive, like, beliefs and all of that, even when it comes to like the roles of women of not needing men or, wanting to be the girl boss or whatever. And then this like shift of like wanting a little bit more of a traditional energetic dynamic with your partner. And now there's more women that are like wanting to like live off of the land or like be the
Mhm.
homemaker or like these are trends that we see, but I never think that it's a mistake or an accident. So it's just something that I'm also very perplexed and like curious about of how
Same.
the world moves in these like ebbs and flows. And of course, like social media creates a ripple effect that can happen much faster than otherwise. But I think even if we didn't have social media, I believe that it would still be part of like a larger unlearning and a returning to something that we've always known feels good
Mhm.
for us. And I think that's really cool. I think there's a lot of like controversy around that as it relates to, because it can throw some shade towards like some of the traditional like feminist, ideals and stuff. But I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of good that is being created through that as well in terms of allowing women to actually be in receivership as we've talked
Hmm.
about, whether it's in relationship or business, but like really wanting to actually come home to that like true feminine essence that maybe they've always had, but they felt like in order to survive or in order to be significant or in order to be successful or in order to get what they want, that they had to push that down and put the masculine on top of it and let that be the thing that they project outwards into the world. And the way that everyone sees them is like, yes, like I'm strong, I'm smart, I can do this, I'm intelligent, anything a boy can do, I can do better, blah, 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 blah. All of that. We're like, peeling that back in so many ways and unlearning that. So I think that part of it is like really, really beautiful and fascinating.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's like it's all a coming home, I think, I've experienced a lot of that in my own journey, especially like spiritually. And I still wouldn't say like I really identify with a particular name in the way that somebody might want to call me, like, are you a this? Are you a that? I don't know that I would have any of that. But you're right, like some of like the rooted foundations that I start with, I've come back to. And I think it's a whole process of like discernment, of learning discernment and learning
Mm-hmm.
truth in the way that makes us feel strong. And that's been a special, special journey. If there was like a thing that you knew for sure in your body and you're like, I just know this beyond a shadow of a doubt, or like a wish that you had for women or humans, and you could speak it now and you knew that through osmosis, the right person would hear it and know it too, what would you tell them?
Mm. What a big responsibility, Andrea. Put me on the spot.
Opportunity.
Opportunity. If I could say anything that I knew through osmosis would just become true for every woman.
For the right woman.
The first thing that comes to me, I'm just going to trust my intuition on it, is that it's possible for you to wake up every day and feel happy and loved and fulfilled and abundant. I believe that. I think we get to work in co-creation with the larger cosmic divine God, whatever you believe in, to create that, but that it is possible for every woman. And I think that was my biggest wish at one point in my life, when I was like working a really draining job and I hated getting up and I felt like there was a gray cloud over my head every single day. Like, I just felt like that was the biggest dream of like, if I could wake up every day and feel happy and excited and fulfilled and abundant, like I would have won at life. And I don't think that that has to be a rare dream. I think it gets to be a very common experience. And that's the work that inspires me daily. And I know it's something that drives you too. And it's like it's why what we do is so important, because I really do believe that that gets to be your reality.
Absolutely. And if people want to make you a part of their daily reality, where do they find you?
Thank you. You guys can find me on Instagram. That's where I mostly hang out, at _Samantha Daly. You can check out the podcast. We featured Andrea. We had an amazing conversation over there. So go check out her episode. The podcast is called Makeshift Happen. You can find it anywhere you get podcasts, and also on YouTube if you like video. So
yes, we finally just got on YouTube too. I don't think I've actually told anyone.
Oh, yay. Congrats.
We're there. Felt like such a big accomplishment. Oh my God, you guys. One of the things that you guys can do to just send Samantha some love and appreciation is take one thing that she said today that really just like dropped in for you, that felt like home or felt like truth, and send her a DM and say thank you. Because beyond the reviews where you mentioned, beyond the shares that I know that you guys will do, you guys are so good about sharing our episodes, like taking a moment to thank our guests for just sharing their wisdom and sharing who they are, sharing their hardships and the vulnerability that people bring onto this podcast is something that's quite special. And just sending Samantha a thank you for that is something that you guys can do to appreciate her time and her shares, and her just like giving a little bit of her soul to help make your path a little bit lighter, easier, and better. And so send her a thank you over in DMs. And I love you guys. Please, please, please go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Send this episode to a friend, and I love you. And I'll see you guys over on Instagram.